And welcome back once again to Fantasy Football Fanatics. I'm Mike the Beatdown Carrillo alongside here.
Caine the big dog Tsutsui. 11 weeks in. Here we go. Can you believe it? 11 weeks into the season. Wow.
Yeah, it's that time for the playoff push. You know, there's 3 games left for most of you players out there. Yep. And, you know, people are fighting for a playoff position.
Yeah, it's coming down to the wire in fantasy leagues. These are the make or break type weeks for the people that are on the bubble. Hopefully, you're not one of those people that are kind of hanging out there in the distance. Hopefully, you're up at the top of your division or conference, and you're looking good, and you're set to make a good run at the playoffs and move into weeks 14, 15, and 16.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the time to do it. Let's go ahead and do a little recap here of our top players here from last week. There was, 13 quarterbacks over 300 yards there last week. I think it was the first time in NFL history.
Big deal.
Topping off that list there, Matt Castle going off 469 yards, 4 touchdowns. With a game like that, I mean,
0 interceptions.
0 interceptions, but most of the coming from garbage time, really, if you think about it, because they were blown out.
Yeah,
and just throwing the ball.
Yeah, they were just playing huck-it-chuck-it football. So, you know, but it is what it is in fantasy leagues. You'll take it where you can get it. I just don't think anybody expected him to do that, and I don't think anybody expected him to be bested by Mike Vick the way he was. Vick just came out and tore it up. 4 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, probably the fantasy game of the year.
Yep.
In most leagues there.
Yeah, and, you know, with those, you know, touchdowns there, he put up some monster points, obviously. Tom Brady, you know, doing his usual numbers there, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. Good day for him. On the rushing end, though, Fred Jackson stepping it up, right? Once C.J. Spiller got hurt a little bit, got most of the carries there, went off for 133 yards, 5.3 yards a carry, and scored himself a touchdown.
And they won their first game, so you do the math. I like Fred Jackson. I think he's a very good, very capable running back. He does it all, and they start feeding him the ball, and they win a game.
Yeah, he sure did, and he snuck in a receiving touchdown there, too, off that shuffle pass. So that helped me in my league. Then we also have MJD putting up 100 yards and getting the end zone twice. Not too bad for Maurice Jones-Drew there. Keelan Williams. Who would have thought? I mean, Terrain was actually warming up. His hamstring, you know, couldn't hack it there. They pulled him. He ends up putting 2 touchdowns up and even had a receiving touchdown in that loss.
Yeah, and it was kind of moot point at that period in time just because Philadelphia, they were playing them on defense, but they kind of knew at that point. I mean, with 28 points in the first quarter and almost 400 yards of offense, it's ugly. So
yeah, if you picked him up off the waiver wires and you were smart enough to put him in, kudos to you. You probably won your game there. The receiving end, who we got on the receiving end there?
Dwayne Bowe, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bowe's just been going off. He's huge. Roddy White, obviously, 2 touchdowns. He's questionable. We knew he was going to play. We told you he was going to play. Went off 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. Can't argue with that. The guy's fantasy gold.
Yeah, and another guy who's been stepping up, you know, this year has been Mike Wallace. 136 yards there, 2 touchdowns for the Steelers. Even though they lost, man, he put up some pretty nice numbers and, you know, definitely a good start there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then Calvin Johnson had a good game, 128 yards and a touchdown. And then we had some kickers that put up some respectable numbers. Lindo Murray went off, nailed 5 field goals, 3 extra points in Seattle's win. Huge game for Murray. So, and then Dan Carpenter, week in and week out, the guy's just really consistent, really good for Miami. So he's a great kicker right now. If you got him, stick with him.
Yeah, I had him earlier in the year and I dropped him. So good for you guys who still have him. Games to watch, just as always, we'll go over 4 games here that we think are relevant. Take a look at the Oakland-Pittsburgh game going on at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Raiders 5-4, Steelers there at 6-3. Raiders been doing pretty well here these last couple games, putting up pretty huge numbers, and we know that the Steelers, they can be scored on. That was evident with New England last week. So, you know, can the Raiders continue to prosper with, you know, that running offense that they have? I think it's going to be very unlikely. You know, Pittsburgh, their defense is just too strong right now. I would be okay putting in a McFadden, maybe even a Michael Bush, probably still a goal line carrier too. But I would look for him to be more of, you know, number 2, possibly a flex running back here in this situation. And then, you know, Pittsburgh does have some issues with their own lines right now. But, you know, Mendenhall's he's a beast, so he can, I'm
Yeah,
gonna put him in there.
He got 11 carries, 50 yards last week. Very spectacular performance. They have Redmond in there. They had Maleldi Moore in there. They don't give Mendenhall his carries, and they wind up losing the game. So think what you will about it. It's pretty disappointing for me. What do you think about McFadden?
Yeah, I'm going to probably put McFadden in as a low number 2 flex position, just going against the Steelers. I mean, he's been going off here these last few weeks. Definitely want to ride the hot hand, but at the same token, going against that, really tough Pittsburgh defense there, if you don't really have any other options, then obviously you're going to play him. But if you have a choice between, a McFadden or, let's say maybe, I don't know, a Reggie Bush who's supposed to be coming back, obviously you're going to put in McFadden. So it's pretty much, cut and dry when it comes down to that. Second game, what do we have for number 2 there?
Seattle at New Orleans. New Orleans, fresh off a bye, their Week 10 bye. Seattle is 5-4. New Orleans is 6-3. The Saints supposed to be healthy. Like you said, Bush is looking to be back this week, so hopefully that comes to fruition. It really helps Drew Brees if he does come back. The Seahawks passing game is lackluster at best. Matt Hasselbeck had a good game last week, top 300 yards, had 1 touchdown though. Saints have the number 1 passing defense, so they look like they could be in some trouble this week against a healthy Saints team. I don't know that I really love Mike Williams this week. Justin Forsett looked good last week. 7.1 yards of carry. Only 64 yards, but he notched a touchdown too, which isn't too shabby. He was running really well. Pete Carroll's coming around. He's warming up to him. I like him. Don't love him this week because the Saints do have a tough D, but he's a good flex type player probably for the week. Yep. If Bush doesn't come back, Julius Jones actually looked really solid running the ball for New Orleans last week. I like him. Marcus Colston hasn't had less than 4 receptions in a game this season, so you got to roll with that guy, especially in a point per reception PPR league.
Yeah, I agree. Third game here, we have Indianapolis at New England. Indy 6-3, New England 7-2, possibly 2 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Obviously, Brady and Manning. I'm going to go ahead and put those 2 guys in there. Austin Collie, he was at practice. Will he play? I'm not sure, but if he does, huge upside, very huge upside if you can get him in there. And then the law firm, he can be huge in this game. New England, they have the highest scoring offense right now. They're putting up points, but that, running offense aspect, they're getting in there. The law firm, he's been sneaking in touchdowns here and there. I would go ahead and start him. I put him in there, especially after what Arian Foster has done to the Colts. I would go ahead and put the law firm in there as well. Branch, Gronkowski. I'm not sure about Gronkowski right now or Branch, especially the way Tom Brady spreads the ball around. I know Gronkowski got 3 touchdowns last week. Even more of a reason, for for the Colts to go ahead and put some pressure on him. Aaron Hernandez was an afterthought. I think he's going to get more back. He's going to get back into the passing game.
Yeah, definitely.
Brown, Tammy. I'd probably go ahead and start Tammy just because of the fact that, he's been monster. Peyton Manning's been hitting him up. He was banged up a little bit after that game, but, he's the only guy they got really there for the tight end position. I would roll with him.
Absolutely. And then we have the Sunday night game, the Giants at Philly, Sunday at 8:20 Eastern. The Giants are 6-3, Philly 6-3. They're both NFC East teams. Obviously, this is a really critical game for both teams. Whoever wins this is going to be in first place in the NFC East there. The Giants need to establish the ground game. Their offensive line's really banged up. They ran the ball very poorly against the Dallas Cowboys. They just looked flat against the Cowboys, period. But they really got to get the ground game going. Feed the ball to Ahmad Bradshaw. Let him do his thing. The Philly defense was solid against the Redskins last week. Obviously, the Redskins were playing from behind, but that's one of those things. So I like Bradshaw and Nix this week against Philly. They're going to have a tough game, and I like LaShawn McCoy this week. We'll see what they can do. So don't forget to come on back. Join us for part 2, week 11.
We'll see you then.